This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Agun Erev Shabbos, Shalom Aleichem, Bruchim Abaim, L'chol Makom, Sha'ata Haim. Welcome everyone. Agun Erev Shabbos, Parshas Naso. Naso is the first Parsha after Kabbalas HaTorah, so Hashem makes sure to give us a big shefa of Torah. We have the longest Parsha of the year. It's the longest Medrash Rabbah of any Parsha. It's the longest Raya Mehemna, longest Zohar of any Parsha. So let's begin with some ideas on Parshas Naso. Rashi says on Parak Hey Pasuk Yud, V'ish es kadashav lo yiyu, and a man, his holy items will be to him. This is talking about the inyan of Meiser. Literally, the Pasuk says, Parak Hey Pasuk Yud, V'ish es kadashav lo yiyu, ish asher yiten la'kohen lo yiyah. It's talking about giving truma, and Rashi brings a medrash that says, one who is ma'akev meiser, someone who doesn't give meiser, and he keeps it and he doesn't give it, lo yiyu, it will be to him. Meaning, in the end of the day, you'll only produce 1/10 of what you were accustomed to produce. You have meiser, give the meiser. You don't, lo yiyu, then it will be to you. Which is understood to mean that you'll only produce 1/10 of what you were accustomed to produce. So it's interesting that the Torah doesn't say you'll produce 1/10. The Torah says the meiser that you're accustomed to giving will be to you. Why doesn't the Torah say explicitly, you'll produce 1/10? What does it mean, it will be to you? I think this teaches us something very important. Namely, there is a meiser, there is a 10% that's which is in a person's possession that has to be given to a poor man. Now, if you don't take that 10% and give it to support Torah, to support Aniyim, that very 10%, oh, you better be sure it will be given to support Aniyim. Who? You! Meaning, the way the Torah says that you're only going to produce 1/10 of what you're accustomed is your meiser will be to you. Meaning that very 10%. That very 10%. This is Parsha in the Pasuk. That very 10% that you're supposed to give to the ani, there's no way to get around it. It will go to the ani. But if you don't give it to the ani while keeping the other 90%, you're going to end up giving it to a different ani, and that is the person themselves. Now, this is also very interesting. And this is an important principle to be aware of. Rashi tells us that in the Parsha of Soita, which is someone who is unfaithful to their husband, it says Ishish, which comes to teach that a person is being unfaithful to two. To the Ish Lamala, to the God above, to the Ish Melchama, and to her husband. Likewise, on the Pasuk, Parakeh Pasuk Tetzvav, Minchas Kina'os, Rashi says, it is Ma'orer two jealousies. The jealousy of God and the jealousy of the husband. If the woman is unfaithful, so she's A, unfaithful to God, and B, she's causing God to be jealous. So this is highlighting a very important principle that we often overlook. Namely, that when there's a union between husband and wife, it is not a union between two people. It's a union between three people. When husband and wife are married to each other, when the man is koina the woman, and they now have kedushin together, don't think it's just the two of you. It's a three-parted partnership. It's you, your wife, and the Ribbanu Shalom. As Gemara tells us, every child, shloisha shutfim heim ba'adam. There are three partners in a person. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Aviv v'imai. Shvilei Pinchas always tells me, if a person needs something for their children, the way to daven is, you say, Hashem, look, this is not my need. This is your need also. We're partners in this child. Come on, help me out. This is not just for me. You turn to your partner. We're partners over here. So when a woman is unfaithful to her husband, she's not only unfaithful to the husband, she's unfaithful to God, as we know. The man offers the yud, the woman offers the hay, and the Rebbeinu Shalom is the third partner. So a woman who's treacherous to her husband, she's unfaithful, it's against God as well. The next just point is something that always is very compelling to me. And that is, we're trying to get this woman to admit that she was unfaithful. Now clearly this is a very brazen woman, hard-necked woman, stubborn woman, strong-willed woman. The husband said, I don't want you going into seclusion with that guy. She does it anyway. And she denies it. And we take her to the Beis HaMikdash, and she denies it. And she knows she's going to have to drink the Saita waters, and she's going to explode. She's still stubborn. So what do? So Rashi brings, we make her walk from place to place to tire her out so that she would admit. Just think about it. This woman is like tough as nails. But nevertheless, everyone has their breaking point. And people who are tired or worn or thirsty or hungry, they're not operating under all cylinders. And even someone who's so stubborn and strong-willed, if you tire them out a bit, then you're dealing with a different beast. And that's always important to be aware about oneself. That sometimes a person is tired or worn out, they're more prone to do an Aveira, they're more prone to anger, they're more prone to give in to the Yetzer Hara. And therefore it's important to be aware, I'm hungry right now, I'm grouchy right now, maybe I shouldn't have this conversation right now. You have somebody who could get on your nerves, don't talk to them if you're hungry, you're tired, you're worn, because you're not operating under all cylinders. Okay. Now this was also very interesting to me. We know the Nesiim donated first to the Chanukas HaMizbeach. Rashi is bothered, why did they donate first? He says that by the Nedavas HaMishkan they donated last. And because they donated last, they wanted to make up for it. Now, it's interesting because the karbanos were not the first thing they donated. Actually, the first thing they donated was the cattle and the wagons to transport the items of the Mishkan. So Rashi says, once they did the mitzvah of donating the wagons and the cattle to carry the Mishkan, their heart further compelled them to donate first to the Mizbeach. Which means they didn't immediately donate to the Mizbeach. It means first they donated the cattle. That mitzvah elevated them. And once they were elevated, then they had the desire to donate further. From here we see that sometimes to be zoicha to a big mitzvah, you first need the small mitzvah to elevate your heart and to inspire you to be able to be zoicha to a greater mitzvah. Sometimes, in fundraising, you say, okay, let the person give the small donation and they'll get into the habit, maybe you'll get the bigger donation. But it's not a psychological ploy. There's an idea that sometimes a person needs a certain spiritual elevation to have the desire to do a bigger mitzvah. In fact, the Gra writes that whenever a person does a mitzvah, he creates an angel that will not be satisfied until you do a mitzvah of even greater caliber. And this is again something we see over here. After they did the first mitzvah, it engendered a desire to do even a greater mitzvah. Okay. Now, another idea. The pasuk says, "Vayakrivu hanasiim es karbanon lefnei Mizbeach." The Nesiim, when they brought the animals for the karbanos, they didn't bring the karbanos immediately. They left it in front of the Mizbeach. Rashi says because Moshe needed to receive word from God that he should accept it. Hashem never told them to bring karbanos. So Moshe Rabbeinu had to wait until God gave word. Interestingly, Rashi already said earlier, regarding the cattle and the wagons and the Siyum donated, that Moshe Rabbeinu also had to leave it in place until he received word that he could accept it. So it's interesting. Moshe received word that he could accept their first donation, but even so, he did not accept their second donation until God gave explicit word. Because there's an idea that Moshe Rabbeinu is working for the boss, and he doesn't take any discretion to accept anything that he doesn't have explicit command that that's what the Rebbeinu Shalom wants. And just because the Rebbeinu Shalom acceded to their first desire doesn't mean the Rebbeinu Shalom will accede to the second thing they want to donate. Okay, now I want to share with you, I think this is a major offering. Rashi brings, in describing the symbolism of the Chanukas HaMizbeach and the various karbanos, Rashi says that everything had great significance. Says Rashi that the gematria of Ka'aros Kasef is 930, connected the years of Adam HaRishon. It weighed 130 mishkala because Adam HaRishon had children at 130 years old. Mizrak Echad Kasef is gematria 520. 500 years Noach was when he had children, and 20 years of the Gezerah of the Mabel before he had children. It's 70 shekel, connected the 70 nations. Kaf Achas, connected the Torah that was given from the hand of Hashem. Asara Zahav, Asaras Hadibrois. Ketoires, if you substitute the test for the Dalid, Taryag, Gematria 613. Par Echad, Avraham. Ayel Echad, Yitzchak. Kebes Echad, Yaakov. Seir Yizim, to be Mechaper Mechiras Yosef. Ulazevach Hashlamim, connected Moshe Aharon. And so on and so forth. So it's wondering, why are we being merames basically to all of world history until this point? We know that the Torah was given in the year 2448. So we're now talking, I believe, in the second year. So this is the year 2449. Why is it important to review all the world happenings until this point, alluded to in the various details of the Chanukas HaMizbeach? I believe we could say as follows. We know that the day that the Mishkan was erected, Vayehi biyayim hakim es ha-Mishkan, kalois Moshe hakim es ha-Mishkan. Chazal say, first of all, that day it was simcha before God, like the day that heaven and earth were created. Furthermore, on the words Es HaMishkan, Chazal say that there was another thing that was erected with the Mishkan, and that is the entire world. That the world was wobbly, the world was unstable until the Mishkan gave it purpose, because the whole purpose of the world was for God to dwell Hashchina in it. So the world did not have purpose until the Mishkan was erected. And so in a sense, what the Mishkan was doing, it was solidifying, verifying, upholding creation. But not just creation, we could say. It was then giving solidity. It was giving concretization, not only to existence, but to world history. In other words, now that we have a Mishkan, the last 48 years of world creation is now purposeful. So the allusion to the entire history of the world until this point was to show that not only is the world being given kiyam, but even the history of the world, the happenings of the world, were likewise being substantiated. And then this is really a gift from Shamayim. If you count up from the beginning of Parak Zayin, which talks about the Chanukas HaMizbeach, Vayihi b'yoyim kalois Moshe lahakim es HaMishkan, Vayimshach oisai, Vayikadesh oisai, Vayimshachim. He talked about the Chanukah of the Mishkan. From Parak Zayin until the end of the Parsha, you have Pei Tes Psukim, 89 Psukim, Gematria Chanukah, Gematria inauguration. Really amazing. You have from the beginning, you have Pei Tes Psukim. It's one of the longest prakim in the Chumash. Maybe it's probably the longest. Pei Tes Psukim, Gematria Chanukah. The Chanukah of the Mishkan occupies Chanukah Psukim. Okay, that's what we got on Parshas Naso, but we have some very interesting questions. I just have to change the batteries.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.